Well, today we're going to be talking about return and recurrence. And this is like a particularly interesting lecture because it will allow us like to answer some questions that perhaps we have asked ourselves at some point. For example, with this topic, we are going to understand what the famous deja vus are due to, which are like that feeling that we had already experienced something before. That something, happens to us, and we feel like something inside that tells us that we had already seen or experienced that before, but we can remember when. For example, when visiting a place, some place for the first time, and having like that strong feeling or that strong impression of having been there before, or meeting someone for the first time and feeling like an immediate affinity with that person, in a sense of knowing that person like for a lifetime. Or on the contrary, we meet someone for the first time and we feel like that, like a dislike towards that person, but without even knowing that person well. And maybe you have asked why. And today we are going to see by studying these two laws what is the real cause of all this. We are also going to talk about successive lives or past existences. We are going to learn how we can get to verify who we have been in past lives, or if it is true that there are successive lives or not. And we are also going to see how we can get to change our destiny. So as we can see, today's topic will be very, very interesting. And well, actually, I would like to start today's lecture um, by reading a quote that I like understand that summarizes the importance of understanding today's topic. And this is a quote: a man is what his life is. If a man doesn't modify anything within himself, if he doesn't radically transform his life, if he doesn't work upon himself, he's wasting his time miserably. And well, if we are here at this moment listening to this lecture, following this course, or looking for, topics of spirituality and of awakening of consciousness, it is actually because we have like reached, that point in our life where something internally demands that we must make an interior change, that something has to change. We have reached that like mathematical point in our lives where we like start questioning our existence, where we begin to realize that just as we have been leading our lives as everyone else is doing, we will not even be able to discover the transcendental purpose of our existence. So, to start moving forward, to start waking up, we must get to generate an internal change, an internal revolution that lead us to make radical changes in our lives. Otherwise, we will only be, like the quote says, wasting our time miserably as we have been doing existence after existence. And once we understand the need to start making a change, a radical change inside us, it is necessary to know what are the things that keep us tied to act always the same way, to repeat always the same life lessons over and over without transcending them. And for this, we must remember that the physical world is actually governed by 48 laws. And these are laws that govern the mechanics of the world. And they are laws that mechanically subject us to this wheel of samsara. And if we want to awaken our consciousness, we must learn to get out of that mechanicalness, of the mechanicals of this universe, and we need to learn to conscious transcend all these laws. Today, we are going to be talking about two laws, the law of the return and the law of the recurrence. The law of return is the one that mechanically keeps us returning, coming one and again, as you can see here, dying and being born again. That is the law of return. And the law of recurrence is the one that keeps us like repeating the same thing, that things occur to us once and again, repeating the same life lessons over and over again. So it is important that we get to study these laws, that we get to understand how they are actually making control over us. So we awake our consciousness and we learn how to transcend this mechanicalness. So let's start by studying what is the law of return. If you see the word return, if we break it down, we see that re comes from repeating and turn from turning or spinning. So what this law actually means is that everything turns repeatedly. Like you can see how the planets turn around themselves all the time. They start and all the seasons pass and they go to the initial point again and they turn again. You can see how the planets turn around the sun, for example, how the solar system turn around the galaxy, and so on. Everything comes again to its starting point. The same happens exactly with us. This law mechanically keeps us returning, dying, and being reborn, existence after existence, through the wheel of samsara, which is the wheel of the evolution and the involution. So we will see that our very life, with all its times, is a wheel. As you can see here, we are born and we go a child and we grow and maybe we get to reproduce, then we get old and we die. And we can believe that when we die, everything ends. But it turns out that no. Death is just the return to the starting point of life itself, with the total possibility of repeating our whole life once again. And as we explained in the lecture number 8, where we talk about the evolution and the involution in the wheel of samsara, we said that we, as divine sparks, have 3,000 opportunities. That is 3,000 cycles or turns in that wheel of samsara to try to achieve our self-realization. And in every turn, we are going to pass through the different kingdoms of nature. We are going through the mineral kingdom, vegetable, animal. We pass to the human kingdom. And in the human kingdom, we have the right to 108 existences as a human per every cycle. If in that 108 existences as a human, we don't do the work to awaken our consciousness, we pass through the process of involution. There our spark get clean again and we start once again the process in another cycle. Those are 3,000 cycles we have opportunity to, and in each one 108 existences as human. So if we make the math, 3,000 times 108 give us or let us know that we have the right to return in 324,000 human physical bodies passing through physical death. And every time that we die, we come to return again. And what is that returning process? What is the process that we live every time that we die and we come again? Well, actually, we talk about that in the topic number 2, where we talk about what death is and what happens when we die. And there we saw that once our physical body dies, we pass through a judgment process to wait like the deeds made in the previous life. So they measure like the karmic consequences that we will live in our next life. And after that, we are going to wait in a place that is known as the limbo for the necessary conditions to be met for us to be born again. That is that our parents to meet, to fall in love, to marry, or whatever the process that leads them to have a sexual intercourse in which they are going to gestate the physical body of a new child to which our spark will be connected to. And there we are going to return to a new physical existence. That is the process that we live in each one of those 108 opportunities in every cycle. But it is very interesting to discover that we actually continue in the seed of our descendants. We return most of the time in the same family tree. For example, it is very common that the grandmother who died a few years ago is now the little niece who was born recently. If the person has not yet exhausted their 108 existences as a human, in that cycle, her or his spark continues to reborn in the descendants of their family. That is like the most common thing. And even after having exhausted their 108 existences as human, without, having done the necessary work to awaken consciousness, will continue to return into different kingdoms of nature. You know that when you exhaust the existences as human, you need to pass through the animal kingdom, but in the involution like arc, then the plant kingdom, then the mineral kingdom. And well, if, let's say, for example, the grandmother died and she already exhausted her 108 existences as a human in that cycle, she is going to return now in the body of an animal. And you see that sometimes comes to our house a little puppy or a kitten, and we actually fall in love with that animal, and we love that they have some human attitudes, and actually one loves because they really think like they are human. But if we actually make an astral projection and we get to investigate who that pet was when it was a human, we will discover with surprise the veracity of this that I'm talking here. That is probably someone of our family that died a few years ago. And actually, with the technique of the astral projection that I already talked in the in topic number 3 of this course, that you can go to the videos here in the page and you can get to see that lecture. And we already made a guided practice for achieving the conscious astral projection. There, when you achieve the conscious astral projection, you can also get to verify by yourself the reality of the successive lives, because you can astrally project and you can ask your inner being, once you are unfolded, to show you in which of your 108 existences you are currently going. Or you can ask him to show you one of your past lives. And actually in the astral plane, you can be taken to another period and another time, and you can actually see yourself in another body, living these or those things that are surprisingly very similar to the things that you are living now. Actually, you can get to investigate that kind of things. It is very interesting. And also, in a conscious astral projection, you can ask your being to show you the process that passed between death and being reborn. You can actually get to investigate all that in the conscious astral projection. And when you get to make that research, that will be for you a real knowledge, because it is from your own inner being. And this information will no longer be a theory that seems logical or not, but will be a real internal experience. And this is how the awakening of consciousness like progresses, since awakening is not about getting here and believing or not believing what I'm saying, but it is about directly experiencing the reality of everything to really get to know by ourselves. So that is invitation. And the important thing is also that we get to know the difference between returning and reincarnating. It is different to return than to reincarnate. And it's important that we know the difference because these concepts are usually like confused one with the other. Actually, the return is what we do. We die and we are reborn again, driven by that mechanical law, the law of return, because our consciousness is asleep. So we don't have the ability to decide how, where, or under what conditions to be born again. We are just driven by the mechanics of nature, you know. But reincarnating is different. It is a voluntary process that is experienced by beings who have already awakened consciousness, who have worked on themselves, achieving, of course, a great interior like progress. And at the moment of their death, they are aware of the whole process. They are aware of having left the physical body, and they can actually decide in which family, when, and under what conditions to be born again to continue with their process of spiritual development. So I want to make this point clear. And well, now you know what is the law of return. It's the one that keeps us returning once and again. Now let's see what is the law of recurrence. If you see the word recurrence, you can also see, you can break it down, and you can see that comes from repeating, and currence that comes from occurrence, and that or occurrence, and that let us know that everything occurs repeatedly, like things happen and come to happen again. Actually, the life of each one of us is like individual, and it is like a movie that we take to eternity. When we die, you see, you die and you take like your movie with you, the movie of your life. And when we are born again, it's like if we take this movie with us and we bring it back and we get to project the same movie again, the same images, but now in the screen of a new existence. Each of the situations that occur in our life throughout it are the different scenes of our movie. We believe that we manage our lives, that we make decisions, and we actually don't realize how we simply repeat the same actions, the same mistakes, the same circumstances, existence after existence. If we don't make a conscious work to get to awaken our consciousness and to stop repeating the same actions, making the same decisions, making the same mistakes over and over again, we are going to be asleep and repeating the same actions. For example, we have been visiting the same places, meeting the same souls, having the same situations, only aggravated by the consequences of our decisions. And that is the mystery, let's say, behind why we experience things that we have like that certainty of having lived before, or of meeting people and already having an impression of those people without having treated them enough or having treated them before. The thing is that we already met that people in past existences. We met those places in past existences, and we have that impression engraved in ourselves. And that is what we call as, deja vu, or even what we call a premonition. When we have that feeling that we have lived that before, or that we know, or that we already knew what is about to happen. And it is only because we have been experiencing that same situation with those same souls so many times that we have that engraved in our memory, in the memory of our waters. And even though we don't remember that with our mind, with our brain, because we have a new brain when we have a new physical body, we have that engraved in our soul. And we have, for that reason, that strong feeling of knowing that. And when we get to understand and we get to verify this, we get to realize that our destiny is like already written, that nothing happens to us by mere chance. No, we believe that we, for example, fall in love with someone just because I don't know, we decided to do so, and we don't realize that a series of things moved underneath our reasoning that led us to meet again and get together with that person to repeat the different circumstances that we have been living with that same person, existence after existence. And this is I think very important for us to understand, since understanding this will shed light on how we can begin to modify our lives. And it is that we need to get to understand that we are not a conscious individual, but many people live inside of us. We have the illusion of being one, but it is only to begin to self-observe to realize that psychologically we are many different people. And each one of those people that live inside of us has their own way of thinking, feeling, and acting. You see that in a moment you are happy, you are optimistic, you know, spirit, and you think everything will be just fine. But that is just a moment. You are that person at that moment. I mean, psychologically. At another moment, you are a totally different person. You are sad, you are even depressed, without spirits, and you think that everything will go wrong and that nothing is worth it. At that moment, you are a totally different person, psychologically speaking. At another time, you are an angry person who can only think and about yelling, about attacking, about you know, in revenge. And another time, and depending on the circumstance, you are a totally different person. For example, a lustful one. And there you only will seek to satisfy your sexual desires. So if you get to observe yourself at every moment, you can get to discover the many fragments of your psychology, the different people that live inside of you, and you are going to realize that you are not a conscious individual. We are a lot of psychological defects at this time, a lot of different ways of being that emerge in us according to the circumstance that we are living, leading us to what? To repeat the same mistakes, to repeat the same dramas, the same tragedies, the same comedies, and so on, from existence to existence. Each of this is what we can call our psychological selves or our psychological eyes. And these selves, these psychological defects, all of our different ways of being, exist because they have trapped a portion of our consciousness. And our consciousness is eternal, is immortal. And in each one of those ways of being, or let's say they have that part of our consciousness that make them live, and they grow and they become stronger every time that we let them manifest. And as they manifest, they feed on our energy. And we see, for example, that an angry person, when young, manifested like a low level of anger. But as he grows and let his angriness manifest in their thoughts, in his feelings, in his actions, when he yells, Every time that he lets the anger manifest, it becomes bigger and bigger, and he ends up becoming a violent person because his angry self has grown um, every time he became impatient, every time he fed violent thoughts, every time he screamed, and that is the reason why below of our reasoning are psychological defects are always seeking to generate the same circumstances in our lives in which they can get to manifest themselves because each one seeks to feed and grow in order to have more control over our physical body, over our human machine for longer time. And for that reason, it's important that we begin to self-observe and understand this because only by disintegrating each one of our different ways of being, and we do so with the practice of the psychological death that we teach in this course in the previous lectures, you are going to free yourself from all these recurrence and from each of the commitments that these psychological selves have acquired with other people through our different existences. How can I make this like a little more clear? Well, let's imagine that at the age of 18 years old, in your previous life, you met someone and like make you feel a lot of loss and you feel like fall in love with that person and you had that affair with that person, but later on that person cheated on you and make you, a disaster. That was like the situation. In the next existence, that is going to be repeated. Again, the same situation. You are going to meet that person and you are going to instantly feel like that attraction to that person. Oh my God, a lot of lust that you think is love. And you get again together with that person and you live the same situation, the same tragedy once and again. The next existence, the same situation happens. If you don't receive these tools, if you don't start waking up, if you don't start eliminating all your psychological defects, you are going to repeat the same situation, your same drama, the same tragedy over and over, existence after existence. And after you finish your 108 existences, you end up that cycle and you start again. So if you, on the contrary, start working on yourself, start self-observing, start eliminating with the psychological death all the psychological defects that wants to manifest in you, once you start feeling that desire to, I don't know, do something. When I meet that person, I start feeling that emotion, that like I cannot like understand why, but I feel so attracted to that person. If we are working on ourselves, we are going to start eliminating all that, asking our Divine Mother to eliminate all those emotions that like I cannot control myself. Divine Mother, eliminate this. I cannot stop thinking about that person. I'm eliminating that. If I get to eliminate all that is making me see that person as an angel, as someone divine, as the best person, if I actually get to eliminate all those psychological defects, I will be recovering consciousness. I will be discovering wisdom. And I will be able to see that person as he is. And I'm going even to get to feel what is going to happen with that person. And I'm going to avoid that situation. I'm going to transcend that situation. But we need to get these tools, get to know ourselves, to start working with the psychological death and, well, all the tools that we give in this course, so we start like modifying our destiny. Another example that I can give you. Let's imagine the following situation. We go to, I don't know, a bar, and there we meet a person that just by seeing that person, it causes like that feeling of antipathy. I don't know why. I just don't like that guy, But we don't stop to reflect on what may be the cause for which I have those feelings towards someone that I don't even really know. And it turns out that the other person dislike us the same. And with the minimum situation that happens, there is that little friction that leads us to start a discussion, and that we probably, get into a fist fight. But what happens? As my anger defect, which is what led me to have the situation, it's bigger every time, and because it has manifested in me several times, and it has grown, and likewise the other person's anger defect. And since neither of us have awakened our consciousness to stop this recurrence of fighting, in the next life we will not only go to a fist fight, but there will perhaps be a knife or maybe a weapon, and at some point it will end up in a murder, turning that recurrence into, a great tragedy. And that will continue to be repeated existence after existence. Each one of our psychological defects, our angry, our pride, our jealousy, our sadness, our lost, our whatever. We have thousands of psychological defects, and each one of them have many commitments. And none of those commitments will lead us to get out of this wheel or to awaken consciousness. Our ego doesn't want us to awaken consciousness. On the contrary, they will seek to manage us through desire and through our mind, so that we give in to let them manifest by becoming like puppets of our defects, and we go through life just dragged by the circumstances without ever denying these desires, and we just go thoroughly fulfilling all those commitments and living in the illusion of being the ones who manage our lives. You see that if life brings us sad situations, we go and we cry. If it brings us happy situations, we go and we laugh. If it brings us violent situations, we get angry. And if it brings us lustful situations, we get sexually aroused, etc. We never deny ourselves to our desires. We never reflect. We never take control over our emotions, over our desires, thoughts, and actions. And if we really want to change our destiny, if we want to, that our consciousness is who start directing each one of our acts, we have to disintegrate each of these actors that are our different ways of things. It is very important to be clear about how the recurrences are stated. We need to get to, by self-observing, get to identify when a recurrence is about to happen. And we can actually get to discover this because we start feeling something. We start having that telepathical communication with other people defects, and we start to have, for example, a strong desire to look for such a person or to call such a person, or strong desire to do this or to do that. But we need to start reflecting, why am I having this strong desire? Why am I willing to do that? Why? What defect is moving inside of me? Why am I having this anxiety, that impatience, and I start eliminating all that? For example, let's say that we have a partner, a couple, and we have learned in this course how important is our couple for the development of our spirituality, because for the suprasexuality, we need three things: chastity, fidelity, and love. So we need to develop fidelity to our partner in order to make the sexual fire of the Kundalini to ascend through our spine. Okay, we already learned that. But let's say that we have a recurrence of adultery, of being unfaithful to a partner. That is something that we come repeating life after life, and we have that recurrence. Because we have that unfaithful defect inside of us that comes with that sexual commitment with another person from a past existence. Let's say that is example. For this adultery to take place, first a telepathic communication begins to move between our defects and those of that other person. And some desires begin to move in us and in that other person. And we start to feel that desire to flirt, to meet, that person, or to talk to that person. And our personality will also help, because we have a personality that at that moment is at the service of our ego. So when we have a desire, what we do is that we use the resources of our personality to make that thing happen. But also our mind, our intellect is at this moment, as we are totally asleep, at the service of our ego, of all our different ways of being. And our intellect also helps, and we start thinking about that person and overthinking about that person, or let's say overthinking about that situation, And what happens? That as all this is happening, we are actually ready to fall into that recurrence, since we come with such a psychological load of emotions and of thoughts that we get to think that we are in love, and we end up being unfaithful to our partner, and that recurrence happens once again, repeat. And these are facts that we actually ignore, that things happen to us, and things that are processed in our subconscious and in our unconscious. And we really have the illusion of doing. Yeah, I'm doing that because I want to. Because I'm me and I want to do so. But no, we do nothing. Things are actually happening to us, existence after existence. Now, what can we do to avoid being subjected to this law of recurrence and to its consequences? Well, the first thing will be to reflect on this law of recurrence. We need to get to discover that actually, yes, this law is like handling every part of my life, that I keep repeating over and over the same mistakes. Our psychological defects are mechanical, and they make us mechanical people. We repeat the same actions over and over. We are subjected to this law, and we can actually observe that every day. You can observe how every morning you repeat the same action, and your defects of laziness leads you to postpone the alarm on the cell phone multiple times in the morning. And for that reason, you all every time arrive late to work, for example. And you the next day do the same thing, and the next day do the same thing, and you have the same situation and then the same altercations recurrently. Or you can see how your defects lead you to always have the same discussions at dinner with the family or with your son, or the defects that led you to go out every weekend to seek for the same pleasures, or to fall in the same pains over and over. And see, you can observe how your own psychological defects are the ones that lead us to always have the same situations in this very life, to always get to complain that you are not lucky in money things, or that you always do badly in business or in love, that you are always deceived. And we don't realize all these processes that occur below our reason, where our own psychological defects lead us to constantly make the same decisions, to always attract the same people and fall into the same situations, and we repeat the same things over and over. So if you get to understand that actually, yes, this law is a reality in my life, you need to start to self-observe, So you can get to discover when the recurrences are about to be gestated. You need to observe the magnetism. You need to get to observe that telepathy when you start feeling things and thinking things, so you can start working that. Also get how your personality start acting when you change your way of being behind something, and there you can discover that something is going on. When you start thinking compulsively in something or in someone, you need to get to discover or to observe your emotions and your desires, and you need to start refusing your desires, because that way you are going to free yourself from falling over and over again in the same mistakes. For example, I observe that I'm having suddenly the desire to start flirting with someone that is not my couple. I must refuse that desire by observing that defect and getting to understand that it is my lustful defect, that it is an unfaithful defect that is manifesting in me, that is not a part of my consciousness, so it must die. And there we are going to practice the elimination of our psychological defects, which is the psychological death. Once you get to self-observe, to discover a defect in you, you must ask your Divine Mother to eliminate it from you. You can ask this mentally. You can say mentally, my mother eliminates this defect, and you are going to experience how this will lose like power in you. And the same you are going to do with everything that you think, with everything you feel, and you are going to start having a control over you. If you do so, you will get rid of each of all those ways of being, and you will rescue huge amounts of consciousness that is currently trapped into those psychological defects. It is important to die to each one of those defects so we can actually get to start awakening our consciousness. And another thing that is important and that we need to start making is a wise use of our sexual energy. And why? Because when we ask for death for a defect, we liberate a portion of our consciousness. I mean, the greater the amount of defects that we get to eliminate, the greater the amount of consciousness that we are rescuing. But if we don't fix that consciousness in our spine, if we don't merge it, if we don't merge that essence with the 3% of consciousness that we all currently have, the ego can in any situation come and trap that essence again. For that reason, it's important that we have a stable partner and that we start practicing the suprasexuality that we teach that we already taught in lecture number 10 when we were talking about the 7 bodies there. And we must know that every time we practice the suprasexuality, we make ascend through our spine all these parts that we were liberating during the day. So we merge it with our 3%. So that is important to know. But we must also know that every time that we expel our sexual energy from our body, every time we reach orgasm or ejaculation, we directly feed our ego. And as this is a creative energy, because our sexual energy is creative, it's going to create every time more defects. So if we don't stop spilling our sexual energy, it will be impossible to advance into the disintegration of our psychological defects, because we are going to be Divine Mother, eliminate this and this and this and this, and yeah, we're doing a great work, but at night we go and we spill our sexual energy, which is creative, and we give life to those defects again. So if we really want to advance, it is important to practice that second factor, which is the spiritual birth, which is practicing the suprasexuality with our partner. And well, the third thing that we must do is to start making sacrifice for humanity, to start helping others to awaken, giving them the knowledge, giving them the tools, or directing them to where they can receive the tools so they can awaken consciousness. Because all our psychological defects, when they act, they generate karma. Every time that we let our defects act instead of our consciousness, they generate karma. If we let our violent defect to harm others, that will generate me a karma. And that means that I will need to pay for that karma with pain, that someone is going to be violent to me. So I learn that lesson. And if we don't get to eliminate that psychological defect, I will repeat that over and over. But if we want to transcend that situation, I will need to eliminate the defect, yes, but I will need to pay for that karma. And if I don't want to pay for that with pain, if I don't want to repeat that situation and me to receive the pain in my flesh, in my emotion, in my body, I need to pay with love. And how I pay with love? By helping others. Every time we help others, we make something, everything that we can do to help others in a disinterested way. And what gives us more dharma is when we help others to awaken, when we give them the tools, as I'm doing that with you, that give us a lot of dharma so we can pay for our karmic debts. Actually, in our next lecture, we are going to be talking about the karma and the dharma and how we can make conscious businesses with the divine law to pay for the karma so we can transcend our recurrence. Because we have many types of recurrence. I mean, we have recurrences of dying, yes. We have recurrences of being raped or being robbed or being a lot of things. And we need to start making ourselves conscious of that. Actually, when we start making this work of awakening consciousness in the astral plane, they used to let us know when a recurrence is about to come. The number 10 in the Kabbalah is related to this. If in the astral plane you get to see the number 10 or a number that when you add it, it gives you 10, that is letting you know something about a recurrence coming. So you can see in the as a sin that you live in the astral plane, and then you can interpret or deduce what is the recurrence that is about to come. And our being shows us this so we can transcend those recurrences, so we can get to modify our destiny. If we actually get to work on this, if we do this work of eliminating our psychological defects, making a wise use of our sexual energy, and sacrificing for humanity, we are going to liberate ourselves of all this. We are going to free ourselves from both laws, from the law of return and from the law of recurrence. Because when we get to disintegrate the different defects that keep us tied to the incessant repetition of the same circumstances and mistakes, we free ourselves from the law of recurrence, because the law cannot subject the consciousness. And when you eliminate your ego, what is left in you is only consciousness. And your consciousness is not recurring because it is not something mechanical. So you free yourself from the law of recurrence. And by releasing and awakening all of your consciousness, by doing that work that I just explained, you are going to also free yourself from the law of return, because you will no longer have to continue repeating this course, because life is like a course, because you will have already reached the purpose of your existence, which is to achieve self-knowledge. Achieving self-knowledge is awakening 100% of our consciousness. It's get to really know ourselves, and that is reaching total liberation. So once you free yourself from all your ego, you don't need to return again. You see that we were talking about the difference between return and reincarnation. Well, actually, when you get to eliminate all of your ego, if you need to come again to this existence, if you desire to do so, or if you think it will be good for you to fulfill certain thing, as you already are a being of awakened consciousness, you can decide when, where, in what family, in what country, under what situations to return. To have, I'm going to be born here, and I will have this gender, and I will live those situations, etc. So that because you are already a conscious person, and that is the purpose of studying these lectures, and that is the purpose of getting to know ourselves, so we can free ourselves and we can be truly free. That is the purpose.